Hello, my name is Ricardo Cardona, and along with Daniel Torres, we will expose you to the lexical approach, which is the method of teaching foreign languages based on the idea that an important part of learning languages consists in being able to understand lexical phrases by chunks. This initial description was made by Michael Lewis in the early 90s and is more based in vocabulary than in grammar. Lexical chunk is a term that covers like any pair or group of words that are commonly found together or in close proximity. It's like a repertoire of words that we commonly use in a conversation. Let's say, for example, "Hello, my name is Richard." In the lexical approach, the students are taught to be able to perceive patterns of language, like implicit grammar, as well as have their meaningful sets uses of words of their disposal when they are taught this way, which means that they expand their repertoire in a more practical way. In the 2000, Norbert Schmidt, an American linguist and a professor of applied linguistics at the University of Nottingham in the UK, contributed to a learning theory supporting the lexical approach. He stated that the mind stores and processes these lexical chunks as individual wholes, like readings or formalities. The short-term capacity of the brain is much more limited than long-term, and so it is more efficient for our brain to pull up lexical chunks as if they were pieces of information, as opposed to pulling up each word as separate pieces of information. Native speakers' speech are derived from prefabricated phrases. Fluency could be considered unachievable if one did not learn prefabricated chunks or expressions which will end in a hard way to communicate and in an abnormal fluency, since the brain will look for words and rules instead of lexical chunks which are, as I said before, are more efficient. Lexis is central in creating meaning. Grammar plays a subservient managerial role. If you accept this principle, then the logical implication is that we should spend more time helping learners develop their stock of phrases and less time on grammatical structures. Long story short, we should spend more time in expanding their repertoire. Most language learners are accustomed to learning basic conversation starts with our lexical chunks, including good morning, how are you, where's the restroom, thank you, how much does it cost. Then, in some point, the learning changes to a point where there are more words and rules that language learning fuses with math. Subject, verb, plus complement is equal to communication. Chunking allows your class to cover plenty of information quickly instead of your students individually processing every word in a sentence, what every word means, and how each one is related to the other. They are dealing with chunks. Instead of building fluency one word at a time, they are doing it one phrase at a time. The lexical approach is practical and immediately relevant. Instead of learning things about language that the speakers themselves don't even know about, your students learn how to communicate in meaningful terms. When your students find themselves face to face with native speakers, they will know how to greet them, how to ask them a question.
The application of the Collins Cobol English course represents, for example, Will's notes that the Cobol computer analysis of text indicate that the 700 most frequently words of English account for around 7% of English text. That fact left the decision word frequency word determine the context of the course. Difference in the Cobol course was the attention to the word patterns derived from the computer analysis. Will stresses, however, that the lexical syllabus not only submits structural syllables, it also indicates how the structure which make up syllables should be exemplified revals to the common structure patterns in words that use it. Phrases as a social interaction, necessary topics, and discourse device seems like the most effective distinction for a pedagogical proposed effective way of grouping mind not be found necessary in the wake of fortune or research. Natalie and DiCaro provide the exemplification for the lexical phrases that exemplifies these categories for English and other languages. Supports that a natural approach procedural and suggests that the teacher talk in a measure such of learning input in demonstrate how lexical phrases are used for different functions proposed. Otherwise, Williams proposed that the teacher need to understand and manage a classroom methodology based in a stage composed of task, planning, and report. From William, the teacher is the one who should create environment where the learning can operate without knowledge, and they help those learning to manage those learning, requiring teachers to abandon the idea of the teacher is the knower and focus in the learning who is the discoverer. Material support lexical approach in a language teaching. The first one consists in teacher manual similar to the Collins Cable English course. The second one refers to the vocabulary teaching activity. The third one related to the Triple and Jones materials and student exercise. The fourth one is material related to the programs and attached data sets allowed students for the analysis.
As already explained above, there are different ways in which a language can be taught. However, it is always necessary to have a pedagogical factor so that teaching does not fail.
Based in lexical language teaching depends on which type of the last four materials and activities the professor wants to use. The majority of professional degrees that the learning needs to be a discourse analysis in order to be one who finds the knowledge. The classroom procedure usually implies things like draw and attention to enhance that capacities. The classroom procedure involves teaching individual collocation, making the students aware that improve what the student knows and add new knowledge of vocabulary and collocation restriction, and storing through encouraging students to keep a lexical notebook. In conclusion, the lexicon in a language teaching is reinforced by developments in the lexical and linguistic theory of Lewis and other linguists. Recognize the role of multi-word units in learning and communication. Linguists have coined the term lexical approach to characterize their proposal for a language teaching.